All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I can't believe it's already been 2 years since our last executive state of the industry, where we were chatting about the short and long-term impacts of COVID. I'm Ingrid Fenn, and I'm excited to be back together with this amazing group of industry leaders to reflect on the journey that we've all been on over the last 2 years and where the industry is going to look in the future. As of this morning, we had over 250 participants registered. So I know a lot of you are looking forward to hearing from these leaders as well. And so before we get started, let's hear an introduction from our panelists.
Hello,
Neil?
I'm Neil Murray. I'm the Global CEO of Work Dynamics at JLL, coming to you from Chicago. Delighted to be here, Ingrid. Thank you for the invitation.
Hi, I'm Chandra Dandapani. I'm the CEO of our Global Workplace Solutions business at CBRE. I'm in my 7th year at CBRE, and I am coming to this panel from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, Ingrid, for hosting us.
Hi, I'm Bill Knightley, Chief Executive for Global Occupier Services at Cushman & Wakefield. I, too, am coming from Dallas this afternoon.
Hi, everyone. Scott Nelson here, Global CEO for Occupier Services at Colliers, and I'm based in Atlanta. Been with the company for 14 years.
Great. Thank you so much. So as we get started, especially now in the post-COVID world, we're seeing an explosion of supply of available workspaces and even more shapes and sizes and feelings and locations than we've ever seen before, and more than any one employer could really ever provide. Giving employees access to a total ecosystem of space that really has the perception of higher performance and greater workplace satisfaction than one office could ever give. And many companies are still planning and contemplating what the future looks like for their corporate office spaces. And Scott, you mentioned during our last session that we've been forced to adopt to new ways to work due to COVID. And given that, it has accelerated innovations. And how are clients thinking differently about the types of spaces they occupy and how they're using the space now?
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. Really appreciate you having us. And first, I want to say, I think you mentioned 250 participants. I think it's 1,250, right?
1,250, yeah. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so I didn't want to sell us short there. Yeah, that's a great turnout. So thanks for the question. I'd kick things off by clients are thinking differently by taking the position more than ever before in our industry that the real estate strategy is a core component of the business plan. And what's different is this is not new, of course. We've been talking about this for a long time in the industry, but our view is the pace and the materiality is greatly advanced in the past few years and today. And so we see this as a huge, exciting opportunity. There are many examples where we're seeing this come to life. Number one is in the boardroom, literally. We've been talking again in our industry for a long time about getting a seat at our clients getting a seat at the C-suite table or in the boardroom. And so the thinking differently piece of that is the opportunity around thinking as a business strategy executive and not only a real estate expert or a tactical delivery manager. Another example would be with internal customers, and they're thinking differently as an advisor and a partner and a change management leader, not just an order taker. Another example might be empowering frontline management to drive success of the workplace strategy now. And this was actually validated through a survey that's been done in the past couple of Cornet summits around the world about what is the most effective way to ensure a successful workplace strategy, whether it's hybrid or whatever it is. And it is ensuring that these frontline managers really have the ability to drive whatever the model is. If it's a specific direction from the C-suite and a public announcement, or if it's not and it's more vague, regardless, making sure, and many people see that making sure that these frontline managers have this opportunity to curate experiences, do what makes sense for their team, their market, their business unit function, whatever it might be, to use the workplace in the right way that's going to make a difference for the business. Another example we've seen is the continued advancement and acceleration of being able to think global as our clients, our occupier clients are thinking global, really tying back to we've all been basically through the same thing. What's amazing is we literally around the world, everybody's kind of been dealing with the same thing when it comes to workplace and hybrid and all these other things, all these other dynamics that have accelerated. Another is leveraging data. We have more access, clients have more access to more data, more types of data, whether it's occupancy analytics, whether it's metrics that may tie back to the business. And then another would be ESG, which I know we're going to talk about later on the webinar, so I won't go into that. Tactically, last thing I would say is tactically regarding how our clients thinking differently about types of space, how they're using space. Some examples, which all of us, I think, on this call generally know and have been talking about a lot, working on a lot in the office area, how people work in the office versus remote, collaboration space, giving people tons of options, amenities, whether they're in the space or accessible from the location. And then on the industrial side, of course, supply chain strategy has just been so important, re-engineering that, whether it's nearshoring, location analytics, whatever it might be, changing populations and migrations of people and how that might impact your location strategy on the industrial side. So that's how I would sum it up. And then lastly, we see this applying across many business profiles. It's not just the enterprise client base or Fortune 1000. It could be mid-cap companies, even if they don't have a mature CRE function. So and then across all industry sectors and asset types, of course. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful to kick things off.
Thank you, Scott. So many great perspectives there. And, Bill, when we think about the challenges and the acceleration of innovation that we've been talking about, how is Cushman supporting their clients and how are you looking at things differently over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I think Scott obviously covered a lot of ground there. There's maybe two comments I want to amplify. Scott, I couldn't agree with you more that now is the time where we as service providers, but our clients, more importantly, need to be in the C-suite or in the boardroom. It's impossible to separate, in our opinion, people strategies with real estate strategies today. So I think that's super critical, and that'll probably continue to come up through the dialogue. As we're thinking about how we're helping our clients here, and broaden the aperture a little bit beyond innovation, but they're balancing really tough expectations and priorities. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I mean, obviously companies have different cultures and ways of working, but they're also in different modes of the economic cycle right now. That said, without maybe more than a few exceptions, every CEO or divisional leader I've spent time with over the last 2 years since we were last together, they want people back in the office more. What that means, if it's 5 days or 3 days, it varies, but fact is they do want people back in the office more. So most clients have very similar challenges as a result. How do I reduce costs? We all know real estate is a huge line item. And then how do I attract, engage, and retain the best talent? And so that's why I think these two questions just can't be answered in isolation. Other thing I guess I would say, hopefully we probably all agree on this call, maybe not, we'll see as we get through the conversation, but some form of hybrid is here to stay, is the most likely outcome. We see that pretty clearly in our data set. We have something we call experience per square foot with about 150 companies participating. People still want to engage with colleagues and leadership, and for all the reasons we've been discussing for the last 3 years, but they do prefer choice to mandates. In our data set, we see 40% more employee engagement when they're offered some level of choice. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you can choose to come in or not come in, but some level of choice. So it is a tough balance, I think, for our clients here. The ones that I think have impressed me most, Ingrid, are those that have been successful by investing in the highest quality space in the best locations with the right amenities, recognizing this is different for every client, but also in addition to that, changing how they work, less meetings, more async communication, leveraging tools the right way, not coming into the office and sitting on a Zoom call for 8 or 9 hours a day and then going home. So I think as we move forward, there's definitely going to be more surplus space. Our research team suggests it's maybe 300 million square feet by the end of the decade. But with that said, the highest end space with the right carbon footprint, the right wellness certifications, and the amenities, that's still in short supply and high demand. So there's an opportunity here.
Thank you. Bill, you mentioned many of your clients want to see employees back in the office, and maybe not the same way that it looked in the past. And in 2020, when COVID kind of presented us with a new challenge at the time of where we historically were a business that was built on a foundation of in-person relationships, and how the real estate industry supported their clients was very much in person. And really that forced us to quickly turn upside down and think about digital transformation. And now, as you said, we're looking at this requirement or this need or this want and desire to have employees back in the office. And we're also facing the challenge of people still wanting to work remote in some instances. And so there's that need for technology to accommodate a different type of challenge, which is we're a little bit more disparate maybe. And Chandra, you mentioned the importance of digital transformation and how technology and innovation has helped your collective organizations. And you said the last time we were together that CBRE is reimagining products and services and using a combination of technology and processes, really people and the power of data, as was mentioned today. Can you share one of your or some of your successes in this area since our last webinar? And is this still a journey that you're on, or has anything changed?
Sure, Ingrid, I'll start with the second part of your question. The digital transformation journey we've been on has not only continued, I believe it's picked up speed. While, as Scott mentioned, while our clients cut across multiple industries, they seem to have converged on 4 priorities: portfolio optimization, top of everyone's mind; sustainability, cost reduction; and of course, employee experience or future of work. How do you get people back? So the increasing pressures our clients face, I believe, provide even more of a canvas with a greater sense of urgency to reimagine the products and services we provide in our industry. For us, that translates into a well-integrated combination of people, process, and technology underpinned by data-driven decision-making. What do I mean by that? The micro data we have at the building level, combined with the macro level data of the marketplace, just enables us to provide at speed, high-quality decisions for portfolio optimization. And the depth and breadth of that data also enables us to be the best financial stewards in operating and investing in these buildings. You asked me to give an example of success areas. I'll give you a couple of examples. One area where we're seeing tremendous success is in evolving our traditional FM services into what we are calling smart FM, which simultaneously reduces costs, reduces carbon, and improves the employee experience. Specifically, let's take virtual maintenance, alarm triage as an example. As you all know, asset malfunctions typically generate alarms from building systems. And these alarms are designed to alert our maintenance engineers if there is a system or a component failure in the building. Often these alarms are not optimized, which could lead to unrecognized failures or false positives. Using our alarm triage system, that combination of people, process, and technology with data underpinning it, we can reduce number of technician dispatches by up to 30%. That saves cost and carbon from not having those truck rolls, of course. The second popular example we are seeing is cleaning costs at commercial buildings have always been a high expense line item, and they've gone up even further, of course, with the labor costs and with COVID. However, importantly, demand has become so much more variable based on occupancy comments that were made earlier. So one popular use case we are deploying with our clients is condition-based cleaning that basically optimizes cleaning schedules based on actual usage of a space, which is, as you know, tracked by anonymized IoT sensors, and we can deliver an optimized but variable cleaning schedule to the janitorial staff. With that, we are, we are able to achieve anywhere from 15 to 25% reduction in cleaning costs based on how variable that demand is. So to summarize, Ingrid, the biggest change we are driving and seeing traction on is a digital operating model transformation, which I believe in our industry is moving beyond data aggregation and dashboards to actually determining next best actions that are well integrated into our FM workflows. And of course, our clients can benefit from lower costs, reduced carbon, and improved experiences. By the way, Some of our clients have actually started appointing new roles called a Smart FM leader or a VP of Smart FM to work with us on this evolution from the previous ways of managing buildings to a smarter way of doing it. Doesn't mean we were dumb before. It just means that we are better integrating people, process, and technology than ever before. Final thought before I close on this topic. We hear many clients asking for digital transformation. And I think, Scott, you referred to it earlier. It's critical to understand what that truly means for them because there is no one size fits all.
That's such a great point. Thank you so much for that, Chandra. And Neil, JLL has also significantly invested in technology. How does that play into your strategy, and what technology and advancements do you see in the next 2 to 3 years that will impact corporate real estate?
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. Just noting the points that Chandra made. I think real estate has become far more dynamic in its use. Occupancy varies hour to hour, day to day, and we had quite fixed models in the industry that evolved over the years. Economic models were quite fixed. I think we were all quite surprised as a service providers that in 2020, while the world around us sort of fell apart and every building in the world was, well, every office building in the world was ostensibly empty for prolonged periods, our revenues as an industry held up. Right. So 2020, I think we all posted reasonable numbers, as public companies. And you have to reflect on that and say that's probably not okay, that there's not enough flexibility in the cost base. There's not enough agility in the cost base. And so I think technology over the next couple of years, and it's now, allowing us to provide services in a much more occupancy dependent way. Sounds obvious and simple, but it's actually about ingesting enormous amounts of data and making real-time decisions based on what that data is telling you. In order to be able to do that, it's not just about the tech. It never is. It's about renegotiating pricing models, financial models with subcontractors. It's about having much more outcome-based commercial models for service providers. So it requires some profound change. In terms of the next couple of years, as you know, we invest heavily. We have a $500 million prop tech fund. So we're trying to be right at the forefront of everything that's going on. And there's always the hype curve as to what's going to land and what's going to transform the industry. I think it's probably less about a silver bullet and more about just the quality of enterprise data platforms and our ability to aggregate vast amounts of data towards real-time, high-quality decision-making. There are definitely bits and pieces that are quite exciting around the edge. I think, the use, the metaverse, the quality of virtual versus physical meetings will improve dramatically over the next couple of years. But again, just going back to some of the points made earlier, I noticed, I picked up on Bill's point about the notion of choice. This is a really difficult and issue for our clients to solve. People want choice, of course they do, but in fact, our research is telling us that the most important amenity to get people back into a space is other people, right? So we're trying to be prescriptive about when people come back. I encourage clients to bring back teams as opposed to leave sort of total choice, because as I said, there's a danger they'll miss the most important factor in wanting to be back in the office.
Thank you, Neil. That's great, and actually leads nicely into our next topic. And so I wanted to highlight one thing you said, which was, above all, the quality of data is really a competitive advantage that's so critical to clients, to all of your clients. And I think that's so true. And there's so many technology options and new technologies coming on the market, but being able to use them in a meaningful way that drives value to shareholders, that's really what the intention is of the technology. And when we talk about competitive advantages, I think a strong company culture is another competitive advantage that's very front of mind for a lot of our clients. And building one that positively influences employee performance and customer engagement isn't easy. And attracting and retaining highly talented employees who deliver on brand promise. That's critical. So clients also are considering talent in their selection process of service providers, and certainly the types of environments that they're providing is critical in attracting and retaining good talent, both for themselves, as you mentioned, Neil, but also within their supplier partnerships. So Bill, what advice can you give clients and how CRE can support their organizations in building culture and attracting talent that can deliver on the brand, and has changes in work impacted this?
I believe it has. I think while data is extremely important, and there's loads of data, especially with firms that are represented on this call that are, touching buildings from all sorts of different angles, and investors, occupiers, et cetera. My personal belief is that talent is the most important criteria. I think in an industry where you have, 3 or more players like this that are largely known to have capable platforms, more often than not, it's going to come down to talent. How deep is the team? How diverse is the team? Can the account leader marshal the resources or call it the platform, whatever you want to call it, of the firm? I kind of think of it like selecting a Bain or a McKinsey or a Goldman or a Morgan Stanley. You're not sitting there going, can they deliver? You're really looking at the folks in the room across the table from you and saying, who are you going to be the best fit to work with? And, what team do I trust the most? What team's going to work with my team the best? So if you're asking that's how I would answer. If you're asking about how do our clients attract their talent, obviously we're not experts in the space, but I would probably go back to, I think Scott said it first, but right now, more important than ever, you want us or our clients as heads of real estate in the room at the C-suite level when you're making these big strategic decisions. It's just impossible to bifurcate those types of decisions right now.
Thank you so much. Chandra, can you add any thoughts to this?
Sure. As you all know, it's very much a two-way street when it comes to attracting and retaining talent. In our model, our global alliance director, and as Bill alluded to, right, we have a single primary accountable executive for a client, and our alliance directors are empowered to take decisions to meet those clients' needs anywhere in the world and bring the best of CBRE to a client. The trusted relationship between that individual, the alliance director, and the client are truly special, and that trust takes time to build. And whether the economy is in a recession or not, there will always be a war for the best talent. I agree with you, Bill, that, what is the saying? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Best talent is critical for all of us to succeed. And best talent chooses companies that are, that have a growth mindset, a willingness to invest even in a downturn, and just a great place to work. Of course, as a company, we recruit for those who, of course, have the skills to do the job, but also want to make a difference. And importantly, are team players who can collaborate across the firm and with our clients. One thing I would add, our talent mantra is actually quite straightforward. We want every employee at CBRE to feel that their manager knows them, cares about them as a person, and is fully vested in their success. And frankly, the same is true for our clients. Clients who create an environment where the bar for performance is high and people are treated with respect and care will always be able to benefit from having the best talent we can bring. And fortunately for us, we have great clients who recognize the value of having highly talented and engaged teams, which are critical in spite of all the data we may have, all the technology we may have, all the processes. It's our people who make the difference.
Thank you so much, Chandra. Neil, it was mentioned last time by JLL, 2 words to describe the drivers behind your combined teams were resilience and empathy. What 2 words would you use today and why?
It's an interesting one. I think resilience is still relevant, and empathy will always be relevant in a business that's by people for people. I think with the digital developments and the technological developments that we're seeing in the industry, it underlines the need for this is ultimately a human touch business. Technological advancements are there to enhance and augment human performance, but it's ultimately a people business. And so I think probably partnership is and trust, to Chandra's point, while talent is extremely important in our industry, the best accounts, the highest performing accounts, the accounts with the best relationships attract and retain the best talent on our side, right? There are certain accounts in all of our businesses which are magnets for talent. They know they'll be developed there. They know they'll have a level of autonomy. They know they'll have a feeling of strategic partnership and ability to make an impact on their clients' outcomes. You know, I would ask, you know, many of the audience to think about, you know, our desire is to be partners, and you know, we all kind of shirk at the vendor term, you know, the notion that our people are on client sites and there to fulfill a particular task. I think now more than ever, as somebody said, real estate is strategic. Every chief executive in the world has a view on real estate now, which maybe they didn't a couple of years ago. I have the privilege of going to Davos every year and spending time at the World Economic Forum, and I generally, you know, work to get in front of and spend time with. There's a team here that helped me get airtime with chief executives. This year, my dance card was full. You know, this year, everybody wanted to speak to me about what was going on in the industry, what was going on with space and workplace and workforce. And so I think that, yeah, I would just encourage the listeners and participants here to think about the strategic value that can be derived from a real partner as opposed to a vendor. You know, I would encourage that every account, every relationship, that the key performance indicators, the incentivization for our leadership teams should be exactly the same as those of our clients.
I love that. And I think we're certainly seeing that shift more and more with our clients, with a desire for, as you said, real partnership and real transparency and trust. And I think that's so important. And it's really about culture of both your organization as a service provider and the culture of the client that you're working with. So we've talked about how important culture is, certainly to talent retention and to business, and how CRE plays a significant role in that. And another area that CRE can significantly impact is ESG. And ESG is becoming the lens through which investors and stakeholders certainly assess corporate identity and performance. And companies who merge business goals and ESG practices are the most profitable and sustainable and resilient typically. And there's growing awareness of the power of the CRE industry to enact real change within ESG. And this has led to the rise of effective long-term strategies for things like carbon reduction, corruption prevention, and then health and wellness and inclusion and belonging. And Scott, how is Colliers focusing on ESG, and how are you helping your clients to do the same?
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. So like most multi-billion-dollar businesses, for a while now, ESG has been a much more deliberate priority in the business plan, and we're no different there. Regarding helping clients, we have an active advisory expertise in, for example, both the E and the S area, and while G is certainly more a part of, you know, everyday management. So digging in a little deeper. So on the internal side, as an example, in the E and environmental, like many, we've got net zero targets through science-based targets. There's a ton of activity going on when it comes to how we achieve those goals, and our leadership, our 5-year business plan. That's one of the key priorities, and our leadership are measured and accountable for driving to those results. And then, of course, we have people within the business that their roles are specifically designed around this goal. So that's been a real focus. And then on the S side, internally, we also have very specific goals, again, as a high priority within the business plan, that are distributed across the business on diversity, on inclusion. Specifically, one of our top goals within the company in our 5-year enterprise plan is the number of women within leadership roles, the percentage of women within leadership roles across the business, and a number of different. That's just one example, but a number of different areas there. As far as on the client side, first of all, in the advisory area, there is, we are seeing exponential growth in demand for clients needing help, whether it's early assessments, whether it's helping them implement a strategy, whether it's looking for opportunities within the business to make a difference and help them achieve their targets, or even set up their targets to begin with. So that's something that we continue to invest in and see real growth there as an advisory consulting business. On the social side, one thing that we've certainly seen as more and more interesting and innovative is specific to advisory. So whether it's transaction advisory, whether it's project management, other areas of consulting, how do we incorporate a diversity goals and a diversity mission to help our clients in that area? We have some clients that are world leaders when it comes to ESG and specifically diversity, equity, and inclusion. And thankfully, they're also helping us pushing us and helping us get better here. And so as an example, one of the more common places, of course, across the industry is leveraging minority-owned subcontractors. And what we're seeing more of is clients that really want to take that into the advisory space and look for ways to engage with small minority-owned firms, with individuals, minority individuals that can be part of this, whether it's a big global account or whether it's a smaller engagement where diverse professionals can look for opportunity, can have opportunities to grow. And so this is becoming something we certainly see as really an exciting area to explore in the industry, and also some creative ways that allow, or more innovative ways that allow a company to get tier one spend versus only through subcontractors. And so this is something we see as again a real growth opportunity for our clients to advance with their ESG objectives.
Great, Scott. Thank you so much for that. And Bill, can you also share any progress or highlights from Cushman & Wakefield?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Scott covered a lot. I think I agree with almost everything Scott said. I started at, I guess you would call it an academy company in the early part of my career, 15 years at General Electric. So this topic wasn't new to GE back then. One of the things that strikes me is, when I just think it's good that people know what ESG means right now. Let's just start there. I can't tell you how many executives I've come across in big companies or in real estate companies that thought S stood for sustainability 2 years ago. So at least we're getting our vernacular right and getting the focus right. But I do think we have a long way to go. Maybe just a couple of comments to augment what Scott said. Our data does show that productivity was generally maintained during the pandemic. However, it's very clear that the bonds you form in the workplace, the personal connections, including well-being, have consistently been in decline. And I think it's the trend line that's the most important piece of that. So while we all probably agree that wellness should be table stakes in a post-pandemic world, I think too often we're finding that this challenge isn't as addressed as we'd want it to be. So I think that's a big focus for a lot of clients right now. And that could be for their people, or it could be for thinking about how do they expand their talent pools, acknowledging things maybe such as neurodiversity and how they're setting up their space and how they're thinking about roles. Quick story, just as an anecdote, we did something right around Cornet in Chicago last year with IBM and Pepsi and Humana, with a company called Project Osmosis. And what that was partnering with young, let's say, challenged kids coming from high school and college, where we're coming out of really tough environments, most of them out of tough environments in Chicago that I know Neil's very familiar with, and giving them a problem to work on, a real problem, a design thinking problem. And it was just so inspiring and unbelievable the way these kids were coming at it, which was totally different than the way we might often come at it. And so that diverse perspective, I know our big clients that engaged in that, they just walked away with a totally different way of thinking about things. And, I use that as just an anecdote, but that I think is something clients are thinking about. Certainly we're thinking about it a lot at Cushman & Wakefield. And then on the environmental side, I agree with everything Scott said. Again, the way we're trying to come at it a little bit is recognizing that, you know, there is a whole spectrum of firms that vary in terms of their maturity and their capabilities. And so we really want to meet them where they are, whether that's starting with condition assessment and getting into certifications and then getting into capital planning and project management, or it's picking it up just on the reporting side, depending on where they are. So really trying to meet the clients in the middle, but make sure they're getting fully educated. I mean, even the reporting requirements that are starting to emerge in Europe and likely will be here with the SEC someday, if they can simplify it enough, they're going to come quickly and they're going to be complicated.
Thank you so much, Bill. And I think so many good points. I wanted to highlight the example you gave, a really touching story. And we all acknowledge, I think, the importance of inclusion and belonging, as well as health and wellness. And Neil, I'd love for you to just take a little time as well to share how JLL is focusing on that, both internally and in the way that you support your clients.
Yeah, just, you know, on ESG in general, you know, real estate accounts for 40% of the world's carbon emissions. And we took a decision a couple of years ago to rewrite company purpose. And without sort of being soapboxy about it, we thought, look, we have a sense of responsibility here. We have an influence over about 5 billion square feet of real estate around the world. And so we went to the board with a carbon commitment, a net zero commitment. I think we were the sixth company in the world to have our science-based targets certified by the Science-Based Target Institute. But the board, when I brought it to them, were like, what are you talking about? How can you make a commitment that's reliant entirely upon your clients, right? So our scope 3 emissions, for those of you who are familiar with science-based targets, are actually the real estate emissions of our clients. So we don't get to meet our targets unless our clients dramatically reduce their carbon emissions. And the answer is yes, that's exactly what we want. We want symbiotic relationships. We want relationships where we don't win if our clients don't win. And we get to the point where, you know, we'll have to think about, as you know, dates approach, 2030 is a big year in terms of our commitments, where if clients don't believe in the same things we do around the impact we should be making on the world around us, then we might be able to work for those clients. Like, that's kind of where we're getting to. Somebody else will be better suited to you. Absolutely agree with the point of meeting clients where they are, but there has to be an underlying sense of responsibility and a desire to make a change.
Thank you, Neil. And to that point, Chandra, how is CBRE thinking about and measuring success against diversity goals and really holding yourself accountable, as Neil mentioned?
You know, first of all, diversity is a huge focus for CBRE, just like it is for many of the companies on this call. For us, it's pretty simple. Every leader has a goal related to diversity that they have to declare every year what they performed, how they performed against it. And the way we tackle that is just mentoring a diverse person doesn't count. It really is about, are you helping people advance careers within CBRE? Who are people who are diverse? Are you helping recruit and develop talent externally who are diverse? So it's very specific. And, you know, we believe in training, we believe in mentoring, etc. But for us, ultimately, are we actually making a difference in terms of number of people who are diverse, who are in great positions at CBRE and can grow and thrive in our environment? So it's a huge focus for us. And then I just want to add a comment on sustainability. I agree with what Neil was saying about, you know, we have such a huge responsibility as an industry, and there's a lot of things we can do both at the micro level and the macro level to advance our clients' agenda. Almost every client we work with has set some goal in terms of that, you know, whether it's science-based targets to 2030 or 2035 or 2040. I believe we have a tremendous responsibility to help our clients get there. And by the way, you can do small things like I was referring to, you know, reducing carbon at the building level. You could do macro things. So I do believe this industry has a huge responsibility and also an opportunity to help our clients advance their towards their ESG goals.
Thank you. So throughout the conversation, we've talked and many of you have mentioned several times the importance of partnership. And we saw a shift in collaboration at the start of COVID. And Bill, you said last time, this is a health crisis above all. And I think it's so powerful that the competitors are here together today, collaborating and sharing best practices. And we're here again doing that right now. And Scott, you also noted, I think we are moving into a position to be in co-opetition versus competition, working together on behalf of our clients. Bill, do you see this collaboration continuing to serve client accounts and where clients have multiple providers, or do you see there, again, being a shift or a trend towards one provider?
I think the answer is it depends. But maybe just backing up with that question for a second, I think you've heard a lot more common ground on this call so far from each of the companies we're representing, talking about big macro issues, like climate change, like diversity. So I think the power of these firms representing a largely uniform view and value set is pretty incredible, just given how many different participants we all touch collectively in the industry. And I'm glad there's more common ground there than not. As it relates more to your specific question, Ingrid, certainly some clients want a more streamlined experience that can come from having two or one partner. Some clients obviously feel that having three partners helps mitigate risk and drives this co-opetition, which hopefully results in more innovation. Going forward, I don't know what happens. I think there's a certain amount of size and scale that matters here. If you're too small a client, it doesn't make sense to split up a portfolio. If you're a really big client, you probably like having two or three, and we all know procurement loves at least three competing for the work one way or another. So I would say one thing that I advise large global clients today is, as you are making these big strategic changes that we've all been talking about that are happening some level in the C-suite, you probably want to pick one provider to do that strategy work. You probably don't want that provider to be more of a management consultant provider. You probably want it to be one of us, so that you have somebody in the room, even if you're going to use a panel as you're divvying out the transaction work, or even if you're going to pick, best of breed from your perspective for FM or other services around the world. I think it's important to have one provider and for that strategic work today.
Great, thank you. Scott, can you share your insights as well, or from your perspective, are we still in a state of co-opetition, as you mentioned?
Yeah, definitely. And we see it growing. We see the multiple partner model continuing, advancing, and echoing many of the things Bill said. We just, the data that what we see, the data that we track, that more and more companies are looking to deploy this model, and even many that maybe in past times have selected one provider have decided to change their model going forward. And really what we hear is it's three key reasons: better outcomes as a result of this co-opetition. So probably the most vocal, the key point that we hear the most is, the industry hear the most is, we want more innovation, more proactivity, new ideas, best practices sharing across clients. And so they have chosen a model where if they can set up a collaborative model with two or more providers, then they can really get the best outcomes as a result of that. Maybe it's additional motivation on behalf of each of the partners to outperform, but again, doing that in more of a co-opetition way versus competitive way. Two is leveraging best-in-class providers, and many clients, again, enterprise level, big global businesses, or even smaller businesses, view that not one partner can do everything well everywhere. And then third, it's just a risk mitigation approach, business continuity approach to having more than one option if something arises, and there's obviously a long list of those things that could arise. So that's how we would sum up that topic.
Great. Neil, along these lines, what changes do you see for how real estate services are delivered in the future? And do you see significant shifts across the major functional lines?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to to Scott's there, I would say, if I'm honest, I see something different than what Scott has just outlined. I see, we've evolved so much as an industry, the capability is there to deliver. I think clients were working towards best-in-class providers in a particular geography or in a particular service line, but we've evolved over the last number of years, and I think most, if not all, of the companies on the call here have an ability to deliver in all service lines, in every location, to a consistent standard. And we're seeing more than that. To be honest, I'm sure my esteemed colleagues would say the same thing. We've never seen a pipeline of opportunity bigger than it is today. I think complexity, the changes in real estate world and the macro environment around us is leading to outsourcing, as it always does. I think periods of complexity lead to greater outsourcing. I think clients need assistance, need help, need advice, and the ability to aggregate the sort of best-in-class practices from a broad customer base, the ability to provide career path, talent pipeline, all of those things is leading to a desire to outsource rather than out-tasking, which I think happened for a number of years. The notion of a sort of apples to apple procurement-led lowest common denominator, what's the unit price for X or Y or Z? We don't really see that anymore. I don't know, Ingrid, if you're seeing the same in the advice you're giving to clients, but I think the key word for me would be integration. If you think of the three major buckets of activity that we all kind of are responsible for, whether it's portfolio, capital management, and operations, or FM, those three functions are inextricably linked as never before. ESG, the war for talent, the engagement and retention of talented people is about where you are. It's about the quality of your portfolio. It's about the space itself and how it's designed. And then, of course, the experience in the space. So we're seeing integration like never before and less single service tenders coming to market, which I personally think is a good thing.
I think the point you made about integration is really critical and certainly front of mind for many of the clients that we speak to. And while the service delivery model can look and vary from client to client, and the partnerships and whether they're using one provider or multiple can vary, the ability to have integration across the service lines, I think that is becoming increasingly more critical, and solving for that, I think, is a challenge that is front of mind for all of our clients. Chandra, with that being said, can you talk about one thing that you are optimistic about regarding the future of the CRE industry?
Sure, I will. Before I do that, Ingrid, I just want to add to what Neil said. I think having been through the outsourcing journey in very different industries, banking, technology, and business process services, and now real estate, I believe, in many ways, we have to be careful as an industry that we don't get ourselves into the out-tasking mode, because it's so important. We talked about some very big topics, ESG, how do we help clients with future of work, etc. Clients can choose how many of our providers they think make sense to them. But what we have to be careful about is that, are we able to provide holistic outcomes for our clients? Not just, I delivered this services because he asked me to do it. And I think it's a critical moment for us as an industry to step ahead and work in a very integrated, I mentioned, people, process, and technology underpinned by data. And in order to do that, it cannot be siloed. It cannot be, because otherwise you lose at the seams. So I think it's important for us to provide integrated solutions and not allow our industry to become an out-tasking industry. And then going back to your question about what is the one thing that, I'm optimistic about regarding the future of the commercial real estate industry, from my vantage point of being in a company that covers the entire gamut of the CRE lifecycle, I believe there has never been a greater correlation between the success of our clients' enterprises, their companies, their businesses, and the role we play in the industry. And I'm very excited about and optimistic, though cautiously optimistic, given where the environment is today, about and excited about the future of FM. especially as we evolve towards what I mentioned as a smart FM world, because this industry can deliver a trifecta advantage for our clients, both in terms of attracting the right talent through well-optimized workspaces, help our clients achieve their sustainability goals, reduce operational risk, cost, etc., whether it's in critical facilities, trading floors, data centers, headquarters, labs, you name it. Simply put, I think our industry, the FM industry and CRE overall is going to be at the heart of companies and employees having their best day in the office. And that excites me.
Thank you so much. Bill, can you share what you're optimistic about for the future as well?
I agree with a lot of what Chandra just said. I think, maybe getting a little more tactical, because I'm 100% most excited about being in that C-suite conversation and trying to get to the strategic outcomes. But for, the masses that our teams are doing every day, I think what's really cool is that it's not like the team is locked in the boiler room, turning wrenches anymore. You're getting into a whole different suite of services, some of them technology enabled, like Chandra's talking about, some of them related to reduce emissions, but others more like experience and hospitality services. And so I think that's just a much higher touch, more upmarket, if you will, relationship building with the client, which is going to make us better positioned to try to create the outcomes that client is looking for. If their employees are engaging in a different way to get the outcomes for their customers or clients, I think the game's changed, and then we're a big piece of that equation now.
Okay, thank you. So we have just about 8 minutes left, and I'd love to close with hearing from each of you around one topic that you believe is critical and is going to be front of mind for both us and our clients as we move into the future of work. Maybe Bill, if you want to start.
Sure. I'll pick one. You probably can't say a wrong answer here. I think employee engagement. It's really, really difficult in a real hybrid environment, but also to me, it feels like during COVID, somehow employment has become a lot more transactional. I feel like you can break up with your employer via text, and certainly we're seeing a lot of firms do that to their employees as well. So employee engagement to me, I think, is a really big problem that all companies are going to be wrestling with for some time.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, thanks. I might say a bias for action. We've been in this period of time where it's been hard for clients, it's been hard for businesses to make decisions when it comes to our area of expertise, and when is the right time? How do we do that? What do we really need? And what we're certainly seeing is, and I would hope that the panelists would agree, that clients that are now starting to make decisions, pilot things, take action in general, these decisions aren't so significant when you can do it in bite-sized pieces to where they're going to cause significant problems for the business. And as a result of taking this action, we see that it supports employee engagement, to Bill's point, and being an advisor, that our clients being an advisor to the C-suite, given that access. So that's how we would put it.
Thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I think that the single most important theme is probably culture. I think anyone who doesn't believe in culture as a differentiator, come and do one of our jobs for a while, and you'll see, we get to look in a broad spectrum of client cultures, and they're all different. And I think that this is an era where leaders are being far more intentional about culture, because a culture always emerges, right? And we have to be more intentional about what we want that to be, what we want to, beginning with a purpose, and then moving down to a collective set of behaviors, and trying to attract, people and clients that believe the same thing you do. And I think real estate is probably the single biggest visible manifestation of company culture. And I think that's why, while a number of companies are shedding space and thinking about space differently, we're seeing high watermark rents in most cities in the United States. This notion of flight to quality that everybody speaks about. So I think, probably in full agreement with Bill and others, the notion that it's not just about bricks and mortar anymore, that real estate is right at the heart of company culture and intent and purpose. It's a pretty special moment for all of us.
Thank you, Chandra.
I would say collaboration with our clients and patient strategic partnering, helping both bridge the here and now, the intense cost pressures, the intense pressures our clients are under today. At the same time, looking around the corner because 2030 is not that far away, and being able to help bridge that gap in a collaborative manner. And we talked earlier about whether clients choose one provider or two providers, et cetera, being able to collaborate within the industry, collaborate with innovative companies outside the industry. And I would say my word is, and the focus is, how do we collaborate internally and externally with our clients to bring the best? I think this is a huge moment for our industry. And I'm thrilled that we're having this conversation now. I'd love to look back on this a year from now, Ingrid, maybe not 2 years, and see how things pan out. But I think this opportunity is upon us.
Yeah, we will definitely do that. So, we're getting close to time, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all for joining me today. I know everyone has really busy schedules, and this has been such an insightful conversation, and I've certainly enjoyed it. And I think the global real estate industry is facing transformational shifts in 2023 and beyond. And we're so appreciative of each of your thoughts and your perspectives on what that is going to look like. And as Chandra says, I'm hoping that we'll be all together a year from now to look back on where we've come. And also wanted to take a moment for thanking all of the participants for listening in. We appreciate your time as well. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, take care.
Bye. Thank you.